The bell too.
No.
Welcome back to another episode of Witty Banter. Your hosts Nabil, Daniel, and Anika are here, and our special guest today is Shazia Jang. Shazia, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
As I said, I'm very bad at transitions here, so
Yes,
let's
so
take a
how
deep
has it
breath
been?
and-
Let's take a deep breath and hear from Shazia. She was talking just now about being a creature of habit.
actually
and
something just interested me. So so every time I talk to Shazia Auntie, I always notice that you have you're very familiar with at least our local area, Redwood City, Woodside. And what I mean by that is, I don't know, you seem to know what's going on. And I live here. I've lived here for a long time, and I don't know about like things that happen. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I know everything.
Exactly.
She's the oracle.
So I'm wondering, is there anything
Start
happening
from-
right now?
Yes.
Anything local, Woodside or Redwood City?
There's a huge scandal, countrywide, and a lot of local people living within the vicinity are involved. And who knows, some of your friends may be
Okay.
involved.
Oh,
What is-
the college
scandal.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm kind of my fingers have that feeling, and I have this feeling that somehow I'll know.
Oh, you'll know.
who and
Okay.
Are you
And then
getting
I'll
a sense?
I'm getting a sense, and I will feel initially very bad, and then I'll start feeling, I knew it.
All along.
okay.
All
along.
Then I'll go through that feeling of, okay, that's okay. It happens always.
Can we have a betting thing going on where you can give us certain names and we can respond
Guess
and maybe
who.
make some money out of it, or because we did earlier just before we started, we talked a bit about money and a bit about habits and your relationship with habits and money.
I can't think of any names, but I did eavesdrop this morning when I was in Menlo Park talking about the vicinity. I was lurking around Menlo Park with my dog, my ever faithful dog, son, father, because he's 15, which is like 99. And I couldn't help, but there were two women talking, and I kind of,
Made
kind of
sure you
made
heard.
sure that I, if I could hear some familiar names, and they were talking, and I figured that they were from Atherton. So see, we jumped from Redwood City
Yeah.
to
Menlo Park.
Woodside, Menlo Park to Atherton, and so I was trying to lean a little bit more, but sadly I couldn't pick up any names. But I knew they were talking about someone. But sooner or later I'll inform you when.
Okay.
I find out about
And real
someone.
quick, we have Ajit Punj and Timur here. Ajit says, I'm not involved in this scandal. he's at Stanford right now. And then Timur also says, neither am I. And he's at USC right now.
Which is where the scandal's
Ajit,
happening.
the first person who comes and says I'm not involved is maybe the first person who's
We got you,
We
Ajit.
got him.
Yes.
The first person who said. One idea that I saw online, it was like a crazy idea, was like, let them do it, like allow them to have their kids go in only if they pay for the 5 poorest students in the university. Which I thought was like a pretty funny idea.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
Interesting.
that they can compensate.
They can do it, but like at the cost of.
Well, education, unfortunately, is always a business, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah.
and it's more like, when you're living in society, especially the Silicon Valley, where there's so much competition, and so much showing off, where, it's more for the other parents around here. And,
Right.
it's like,
For the name
what is
brand.
it, nouveau riche? You want to show it to the others. So you crucify your children. And here's, now we are going to transition into the creature of habit thing, where it's
Nice.
your habit that you make yourself, this is your habit, and you're making
You're imposing
it on your children or your loved one or anyone, that what you want to do. If you can't do it yourself, then you make it try to happen to the others around you.
Well,
Am I
you've
correct?
tried and continue to work on breaking the habit of doing things which are expected of you. Tell us a bit about the things that you've done which might or might not have been expected of you when you came to the US, or since you've been here for so many years, or whether it's your business endeavors, which are probably part of your kind of expected, because that was something you saw growing up. but the creative element, which is uniquely yours.
Well, I'll make it brief and interrupt me if I'm going too long.
We won't.
We know.
Because my discourses can last. Is that when I came here, I started working. I was going to Foothill College and I was working in a linen warehouse, and I was a stacker. I used to stack.
I used to work at Tommy Bahama, so kind of similar.
So I was a stacker, and my community, I'm from a certain ethnic community,
Right.
and that was a no-no because it's like a menial job. But for me, and my growing up in a relatively upper class society, that was considered a no-no from the people here, but not from my family. But I had to put something in my resume because I was going into corporate travel part of the industry eventually. So, but my parents encouraged me, and it didn't bother me at all. So that was the big thing, that I didn't care what I was doing.
Right.
And
You just needed to start somewhere.
I needed to start somewhere, and I did it. And my husband encouraged me to do anything and everything. From the day I landed, he gave me the car keys, and I drove from Philadelphia airport to his university, and I drove. And so anyway, so I ended up going to Foothill College, and then I got picked up by American Express. Then I worked in corporate travel. From there onwards, then I kind of retired, went on to have a family after 13 years. And then I just went to middle school and elementary school with my son because I had never been to school here. So I learned the ropes of schooling. And then now I am doing artwork, which was my calling at some point. The reason was that I lost...
When did you start that? When did you actually start realizing that because you studied geography and
history, world international relations.
Yes, in college. So where did the art part come in?
So I was artistic. I used to draw a lot, random drawing eyes. Eyes looking here and there, everywhere. That's why I keep my eyes open. Because,
It's a self-portrait.
I have a bad eyesight, but I can hear and I can still see. So I lost my older sister a few years back to glioblastoma, which is a aggressive brain cancer. And after her untimely, I call death, I was very, very depressed. And one day I just was very depressed, and also encouragement from Anika, who's my very dear friend. I just got a calling to do something creative, and I started painting. And that sort of evolved slowly into smaller projects, and then...
So describe to our viewers and our listeners some of the artwork that you create, and because some of it is very unexpected, even though it connects with the tradition of the film world in Pakistan or the truck art. There's some things where you combine the traditional and the not so traditional together to make things particularly for the house, and you're very interested in setting up your own home in a very unique way. Describe some of the projects that you have put together or created.
So basically, I'm, I call myself a desi hippie. I love old stuff old Bollywood stuff, old Hollywood stuff, and old art and art deco stuff. So I kind of fuse them together, and it's called decoupage.
Okay.
And I transfer it on old tiles, which I used old, basically, I reuse old stuff. And I paint over it, I use Beatles, or I'm a big fan of Beatles. So I use that with some old Pakistani poetry, and then similarly Pakistani truck art with some, poetry or paintwork, and I then reuse all these.
So you got trays and coasters.
And so it's all mixed media.
Okay.
And then I do exhibitions at home, and so it's been going on for 3-4 years, and then I've been invited by the town of Woodside.
Okay.
That was my last exhibition, and that was very successful. And that was curated, so they selected, and then I was invited, and it was 80% sold out.
Wow. So I'm curious about the whole networking aspect of what you just described. So first you said you start these exhibitions in your home. I guess I'm curious what kind of people show up to that? How do you get people to come to those things? And then how do you meet with how do the local townspeople of Woodside find out about you to invite you?
So, for 13, 14 years, I was in sales and basically marketing. So I guess that was my forte.
Okay.
And I'm very connected through Nextdoor Woodside, and I'm in social networking, and I basically self-teach myself all kinds of marketing and sales tools. So I do like open homes, and then I invite other artists and other people, but not in the same field.
Gotcha.
And I do an open house, and I do invites and like mini lunches.
Okay.
And basically promote art, and that's the way I do. And I use a lot of Facebook and Google ads.
Okay.
And my husband is in sales and marketing, so I kind of get his help. But I basically self-learn a lot of new things.
Gotcha.
And I have a lot of social networking in the local area also. I'm very social.
Well, I know, Nabil, you usually talk about how why take a class, because I love taking classes, and you say, why take a class? Just Google it or go on YouTube and you'll find the information that you need.
That's true.
Daniel, you're considering of going back to school again as well, aren't you? But more of an online option.
Yeah. Well, I've already taken like online courses for digital marketing because that wasn't my background in college, or I had not even known about it until the last year. So just to kind of like certify myself as a marketer, I would take these classes and then get the AdWords certification.
So what's the program you're interested in?
Which program?
Yeah, you're doing you want to do something at Duke or something? Some online thing?
So I want to get a certification at Duke University, which is like just a year program.
And this is all online, right?
It would be all online.
So you wouldn't have to move anywhere.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then maybe travel during that year or do something.
And so that would be the certification that you're looking for to give yourself a stamp in digital marketing, since you didn't study that technically.
Right, rather than doing graduate school or something else. I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but I feel like this is a lot more economical and more freedom to travel during that year.
So travel. Shazia travels a lot as well.
I was
tell
going to
us
ask
about
her.
the witty banter about
Yes,
travel.
So how long were you in the travel industry, like before you started getting into art?
So I was for about 13 years. No, not 13. About 12 years I was in the travel lab, but I was in the corporate side of the travel industry.
Okay.
And that was with business travels. I was posted in different companies, like my major. That was an interesting experience. My first job was at National Semiconductor, and the reason they hired me was because I had a very Pakistani accent, and they had a lot of Indians.
The benefit
of the
speaking,
accent.
Yes. That's a nice title to give. The benefit of the accent,
and
which is rare with a Pakistani accent, isn't it?
Because people come and they want to change their accent. They want to completely, kind of immerse themselves into the American style. And I refuse to do it because I just can't,
Right.
I mean, I can whiten myself with all kinds of creams and tubes, but I can't change.
Right. I definitely changed mine. Like what you're talking about when you talk over the phone or talking with someone.
Yes.
Okay. Because I would always change my name to Daniel rather than Daniel, just because like I feel like the first minute of the conversation just goes into a tangent of,
hey, what's your name?
Yeah, and pronounce it again. I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
Donald?
Donald. Yeah. So I would rather not go into that conversation.
My name is it's a Syrian name, and that has a bit of a history to go more into a banter.
Yes.
Is that I was given this name Ma Jabeen with a Ma.
Yes.
Jabeen, which is very, very sweet.
Yes.
So as a kid, I had this instinct that I'm not that sweet. Yes, and I was the youngest of these 4 older siblings, and they were taught. I'm not going to go on the religious side, but they used to be taught religion, and the religious teacher used to beat the daylights out of them. But each time he used to come and see me, I was this tiny little critter, and he used to say, "Marjabeen, it's your turn next." And I used to freeze. And then when it was time to go to kindergarten, my mom said, the principal said, "What's her name?" And I said, "Shazia."
Oh, you just came up with
I
it?
just came because my older sister's friend was Shazia, and I just admired her.
Okay.
And my mom, being extremely nice and caring, said, "Oh, okay, her name is Shazia." So there I was Shazia.
Wow, that's cool.
I didn't know
So
that.
That is
you know,
cool.
and so people used to ask me, "What's your name?" And you know, some of them were very nasty also. So how do you spell it? You know, and but I stuck to it. But on a funnier note, the last name's pronunciation is Jang, like the war. It's a Persian last name, but we get a lot of Oriental mail.
Right.
We
Asian,
get
yeah.
the yellow pages, Chinese yellow pages, all kinds of funny phone calls,
Yeah.
all in Chinese or
Yeah.
Korean.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I have no
Interesting.
problems with immigration, you know, because they look at my passport and I'm.
Yeah, I never changed my name. I know you guys get irritated sometimes.
At
with
Starbucks?
yeah, well, I'll just say my name, Anika, and then, you know, then it's a bit of a problem, but not that big a problem. Because I'm afraid that I'll forget what name I
Sometimes my name is hard to say, like you have to, in order for people to understand it correctly, you have to go like Nabil. Like you really have to give oomph to the
Stress.
beginning of,
Yeah,
If I just say Nabil, like, I don't know, for some reason it doesn't hit people's ears.
Yeah.
Even in Pakistan, I feel like
I have to go Nabil.
Nabil.
Gotta stress the E.
Well, you both had very interesting names. Your aunts had given you certain names as kids.
What, really?
Yeah. Well,
I may not know.
You don't know that?
I mean, which names are you referring to? I
Well,
don't.
you know, so as a baby, you know, for me, you know, you two were like my own nephews, basically. So you were very sweet. So the pious one, what should I say?
You could
were?
say it.
You know, so there was this prophet, and I had this imagination that he was on the river Nile.
Yes,
he was
Moses.
Moses was, you know, kind of put on a little
So
Right.
you're
in a
Moses.
basket, and you know, and I had this story I'd heard that Moses was this really sweet little baby, and you know, he was floating on the river Nile, and you know, when I used to come visit you during, you know, my lunch break. I used to work close to your home,
Okay.
and there I used to come and see little Moses sitting in his, you know, so I named you Moses.
Oh, that's
you
funny.
know.
Yeah.
And what did we call him?
Yeah,
He
what was
was. You were either Bona or
Bona.
handsome.
Or
Bona
handsome.
means midget, or handsome.
Oh, and I used to spy on you too, because you were very little, and my office was close by, and she
Keep
had
an
to
eye.
work a few times.
I was
very far,
working part-time in
part-time.
Campbell, yeah.
So I used to come, and there you were with your nanny, and you had this cat, and the cat used to be flung over your shoulder.
cat
my
that
shoulder.
ran
Oh,
away.
yeah,
The
yeah, yeah.
cat.
I remember
Was
that.
it Smokey or Bluey
No,
or
no,
something?
Smokey
No,
is our
Smokies
current-
are
yes.
the neighborhood cat.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
It was
Wasn't it
midnight.
Nightmare
It
or
was
Midnight or
midnight.
something?
Midnight.
It was midnight. Nightmare. It was a nightmare for me because I remember it ended up scratching me, and that was the day it ran away. I was like,
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna tell anyone.
What happened to our audience? I wonder, you know, if they
have any
disengaged after that
Yes.
whole
No, this
College
seems
years.
like normal
yes.
normal
Normal
audience
banter.
too.
Yeah.
I mean, this is more than most days is nothing.
That is true.
Tomorrow is just checking in. We're watching.
Oh yeah,
okay.
See, tomorrow's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you a creature of habit, Nabil?
Actually, I'd like to be in the sense that in regards to like focusing on something. So I do a lot of programming, and I find I get distracted very easily. So if I could be someone who wakes up at 6 every morning and then just hits the computer, program, if I could do that regularly, that would be good. But a lot of times I'm kind of in and out.
What creature would you say you are?
Yeah.
A bear.
So what? You're in what's it called?
Doesn't move
Hibernation?
much. Yeah, in
Well,
hibernation.
that's a very good question. So, what creature are you?
I have had this conversation with my sister Salma, who was also on WittyBantr. We decided I was the fainting goat. They are these goats. These goats. I think they're somewhere in California, I think, or
They
some.
faint?
And what happens is they're very, very active, and all of a sudden,
It's their
they
defense
just-
mechanism.
Yes, the defense mechanism. They just kind of fall flat.
Oh, they do.
if they get scared. And so I decided that when I get involved in something, I'm very, very active, and then all of a sudden I get exhausted and then I faint. So I am a fainty goat.
Why? I've always imagined myself to be the leopardess.
Ooh.
Oh, like
A leopard.
You always have
that
leopard
also has
material in your house.
I have always been a leopard because years ago there was a function in San Francisco and I was I love leopard prints.
Okay.
I've graduated from leopard to figures. I'm into Buddha. I might become a Buddhist in the near future. So your dad spotted me from like a mile. That must be Shazia because I was wearing a leopard print. Do you remember that?
Else.
Yeah.
And what about you, Mr. Daniel?
What would I be?
What kind of
Maybe an
animal?
owl?
A snake.
A snake? Yeah. Well, I was just thinking of when you said goat, it
Slithering?
means something different nowadays. It's like the term used for the greatest of all time. This is like the acronym for it.
Oh
So when
my
you say
goodness.
goat, yeah.
I am the greatest of
And
all
he gets
time.
goat.
I did not know that.
So
Oh, wow.
that's what they use for like athletes or for.
But what animal would you be?
What would I be? Maybe an owl. Because my
Owl.
name means wise, I think.
Wise.
And
Yeah.
Timur writes in,
Yeah, there we go.
well, first of all, Faisal says he's here too, and he has his Witty Banter shirt on.
Oh,
Oh,
my
nice.
goodness, yeah.
Oh.
Limited edition.
And he's
Yeah, very limited.
and he confirms you are a goat.
Uh-huh.
And then Timur says, if you could all magically make yourself get into one habit, what would it be?
One habit. You know what? Last year I had this 2 months of, and I know you're kind of saying your premise is break the habit. And I'm in the Nabil's mode of I want to make a habit.
We want to break
the habit of not
habits
having
that are not useful and
Yes.
have habits that are productive
Yes.
and stuff like that.
And so last summer, I would wake up at around 5:30 and I would make myself a cup of coffee and I would sit at this dining table and write. And it was so much fun. And I would write for about an hour or so and then I was done. I can't get back into that habit again. And I know all it takes is putting the alarm on and getting up and making yourself a cup of coffee and sitting down in front of the computer. But that's a habit I want to make. So I guess break the habit of getting up. Today I got up at 9 o'clock. I wasted so much time. Not that I would have done anything productive, but it's a Sunday morning. But 9 o'clock is a late
So
wake.
the question again is to
What
Question
habit?
is basically
What habit would you
it says if you
magically-
could all magically make yourself get into one habit, what would it be?
Oh, the habit I would want to be is just to have 200 calories a day and to be and not young. I like my age. I
Yes,
like
yes.
my everything because
Right.
it's a privilege that is denied to many.
Yes.
But just 200 calories and be happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow,
That's
great
a good
habit.
one.
Yeah.
I think mine would be related to that, like being able to just work out right away and not have to think about it or like
Yeah.
prepare or anything like that.
Hmm.
I think that would be my.
Well,
Go
see,
to
the
habit.
the positive of
easier
waking
to
up
follow.
late is that you kind of skip breakfast. so that helps me keep the calories down. But
So you should just say sleeping.
yeah,
Sleeping.
Yeah.
spend your time sleeping.
Time.
But yeah, well, mine was probably what I'd mentioned. I don't know. Is focusing a habit?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Well.
The ability to like concentrate on something and not be broken from it, and like program
Program
for
would be
5
the
hours
habit.
straight and maybe get up for water.
So you've been doing it a bit with coding. What have you ever focused on so long that you think, this is good?
Is there something that consumed your mind, but in a positive way?
consumes-
Like,
Positive or negative?
well, I don't know. I guess is your
Yes.
question. So
Yeah.
I'll let you
can-
specify.
however you feel like answering this, what consumes you?
I guess one way to put it is programming consumes me, and maybe it stops me from getting outside and exercising. So that's bad, but it's good because, well, hopefully it's my profession one day, and I learn from it. So I guess it can be negative and positive.
So the positive is that if I start something, like the artwork,
Mm-hmm.
it's therapeutic for me. It's two things. One thing is that it's the creativity. One thing is the therapy part of it. But I am consumed to finish it. But only when I'm in that zone. not to, like quickly do it. That is the positive. But the other thing is, if I want to fix someone, that
Fix someone.
consumes me.
Tell us more, because when Hassan came on, he said he liked reading because it's a less creepy way of people watching. So he just wants to observe. But you want to go a step further. You want to
Interact with them.
interact and fix. I mean, tell us more about what is it.
Have you ever thought about
And
politics?
people watching.
Like being a politician.
If I know, I want to know more about people, so I'll use all kinds of tools, and methods, not like in a negative way. Like I do use Wikipedia, Google, everything, I have books and everything. And I want to find out, not about necessarily regular people, like I'll give you a small example. It's a very morbid, but yet it's very interesting. I still read the physical paper. I read the San Francisco Chronicle, the Mercury, the Almanac and everything, and I like to read the obituaries.
Oh yeah, I do too.
And sometimes, if it's a younger person who's got a very long obituary, but they don't write the cause of death. So then I start Googling around and I find out more. It's just, I'm curious, and I find out about them, and somehow it's rewarding.
It's kind of like a story, but there's missing pieces to
Missing
the story.
pieces.
And so you want to put the pieces together. Yeah, I can see
I
that.
also read obituaries as well, because one, it gives you a grounding in life in general. You think, and it will one day be over, and clearly for these people who have their obituaries already written, it's already over. But you also wonder, it's like when you go to either a home that you haven't been to in a long time, or you go to a museum, or you look at things which are old, and you think the people that interacted with these things are dead and gone. And what were they thinking when they interacted with them? And for me, it gives me a feeling of thinking of my own mortality, but not in a morbid way. It's more of... what can I do to control my life rather than... and I can only think of the Urdu word kudoing. What does the word kudoing mean? What's the English translation for... can't think of the word.
I know the word. It's
To do.
Obsessing. Rather than obsessing about things I have no control over. Why I should, and after reading these obituaries about, people who... And then what's interesting to me is who wrote the obituary.
Who wrote it, exactly.
Yes.
And, talking about obituaries, like I and my husband, we like to, when we are walking, we are going to different places locally or internationally, there are these plaques on benches.
Yes.
trees,
Grandma sat here or
here,
something.
dedicated to people.
Right.
We like to read it, So I lived in Boston, so we went to Cape Town. So they're the oldest. We like to look at graves, They wrote, they
Yes.
were like 1500s.
Oh, wow.
And years ago, so then the other thing that harps in my mind is that, we are from a different part of the world, and there's so much to see here. So that's where the fixing part in me goes, that I want to tell other people that, there's so much to see in this world. Go explore around, like in Colma, there's there's the cemetery, and my son is an Eagle Scout. And because of his scouting, we discovered a lot of things. So there's also a Muslim cemetery of people who served in World War II.
Sorry, where you said this is in Colma?
Colma in Daly City.
Oh, Daly
here.
City. Okay.
And so they're old graves, World War II, but they're veterans from a lot of, so they have a lot of history written there. So you can spend hours over there just going over, you know. So, jumping from one thing to the other. So it's interesting to find out. And, sometimes I make notes in my phone that I'll go home and I sit for hours. Similarly, I go look at, like Freddie Mercury, I didn't even know he was a Parsi. So, and then I spent like hours, over a period of a week, researching. And I love books and, books, magazines.
Knowing more about...
Here, no one thing, jumping from one thing, to the other, even like, the new thing, artificial intelligence, it's not even my field, but I hear my husband, so I'm like Googling on that.
Me too.
Yes. Well, Daniel has always been our source of knowledge in our family.
Daniel's good at referencing the internet very quickly
Yes.
when we have our
He pulls it out of...
And then when they question it, we Google it on my phone.
So Timur asks a question. Timur says, speaking of obituaries, what are your thoughts on dealing with dead bodies? Are graveyards wasted spaces? Should people be cremated? What about recycled in some way? Well, it's funny he brings that question up because I've been playing this game, City Skylines. It's a city builder. You build a city, and when you're at a low level of the city, you can build cemeteries. But when you advance your city, you can build crematoriums to replace your. So if I was taking it strictly from a video game standpoint, I guess everyone could be cremated. But
they do take a lot of space, I guess. Well, especially if it's, I don't know, if they're already filled up space. But then the problem is, like, what are you going to do with the bodies?
Yeah, I do feel sometimes as human beings, we dwell too much on material things rather than... So if, for example, a loved one's grave is in a certain place, and yes, sometimes you get comfort by visiting that grave, but can you not also find comfort by thinking of the person and thinking particularly of special memories? So, it would be interesting to Google and understand why graveyards with marked graves, why unmarked graves, why the different choices that different cultures have made in how to dispose of their loved ones. Because it's primarily, disposal of your loved one's body, similar to things that people have had for many, many years. I mean, we're all trying to declutter and not collect things.
Culturally, some religions don't want marked graves, and some, religions do. So the ones who don't want marked graves with anything, that's the reason that they go with, what is it, dirt to dirt or something?
Yes,
what is
yes,
the thing?
yes. Dust to dust.
Dust to dust. And,
what does that mean?
Dust to dust is that, you just bury the body and just cover it with...
no coffin. Or
no coffin,
no
nothing.
marker, no grave
no
marker,
no cement, no nothing.
So you're not supposed to visit this place because then you're kind of, in a way, you're paying a homage to a dead person when you should not be.
Yeah, and on this note as well, so here I am, one of those, against my fellow people, that I have done a full body donation.
Oh, okay.
To the extent that I've done my skin donation as well in case of an accident.
So that's recycling.
That's recycling because I have witnessed very closely at a hospital locally, where I met 2 or 3 people whose children were, at that time, the helicopter was coming and they
were receiving donations.
They were receiving donations. And at that point, I realized that somebody was dying and they were, so you can be giving life.
You can donate your body. Yeah.
And about 6 months back, I was about to kick the bucket myself, and they asked me that, what is your preference, because it's in my license and it's in my directive, and I said somebody under 30, and it was very close, and I immediately thought of my loved ones, that if this is happening, then they will see me through
somebody else.
Right.
So answering your question, that will be recycling of me. So in case you didn't see me here, next time you will see someone else.
In case you needed a body part.
Maybe they might be able to transport my voice sound box.
Yeah, that would be spooky, wouldn't it?
I'd want to do the tree planting one, where it's like your remains are cremated and then they plant a tree where your, I guess, cremation.
Yeah.
That would be
You would hope the tree would grow.
Yeah, I hope so.
No, but if you're a very mean and corrupt person,
yes, tell us, Shazia.
The tree might have many, thorns.
It
would
like
not
a
be
snake sanctuary.
Yeah. Did you tell us about yours? Your preference?
Yeah, I guess I would just go with the cremation.
Yeah.
save some
I think
space.
the low cost.
At first,
would be the
I
best.
have had the thought of like,
No, because that's important. The people who are left behind. One, you're
Yeah.
sad, and then now you used to have to spend money. You know,
no, I agree with
Costco
that.
sells some. pretty
Costco
cheap.
has some.
Munim has been saying he's ready to buy his plot, so it sounds like he wants to be buried.
I wanted to buy one with a nice close by, but I did tell her though that I have written my obituary. It's in my safety deposit box.
Oh, okay.
But I do want a peace sign because I love the peace,
Peace sign.
Yes.
I have a trademark of T-shirts and it's a sticker on my car.
I feel like I
you know.
recall
The
either
peace-
seeing either tie-dye shirts or peace signs
Yeah.
somewhere in your home.
Definitely seen
Yeah,
the
and my
leopard
car
print.
used to have
Maybe it
a
was
peace
that.
sign as well, you know, so that people who are crossing me should know that this is
I
that's
come in
me.
peace.
I come in peace. Yeah. No violence here.
Yeah.
I have thought of like, I used to think like, oh, maybe I want my body to be like frozen
yes.
or something. So like
Yes.
in the future,
Oh, like
if they're
Disney?
able to like, I don't know, rejuvenate my
yeah.
part,
Cryogenics.
something
yeah.
like
That's
that.
for like workout recovery, isn't it? Like you're freezing your. Oh, maybe
Yeah.
it's similar.
I think
Maybe.
it's the same.
But then it also got me thinking like, I won't even be like, even if that's possible, like I was able to come back to life, so to speak. I mean, I'm guaranteed that like the memories I'd have were destroyed, and I
Yes.
might come back as like some sort of rejuvenated human, but like I would just be a new Nabil, and
you might as
like,
well.
what's the
just-
point? I
yes.
wouldn't remember this of me,
Yes.
so there's no point in.
I think I don't want to be around where people don't know me and they think,
No,
you know,
I
who
want
was
to know
she?
you even
No, you know how it goes where
Yeah.
you have somebody who's an ancient relative and you say, you know who she is? She is so and so and so and so.
I guess the question is, would you want to have your body frozen, and let's say it's possible to come back to life 1,000 years
No.
later?
No,
no.
I don't think
No,
anyone's
okay.
Yeah.
we've had a good life. You guys are young, I'm happy that I've had a good life and I hope we have a good life ahead.
Yeah.
That's more than enough,
Right.
Don't even want to do any of those lip jobs
Yes,
and all
yes.
those things.
That's
So
good.
let alone the freezing part.
Yeah.
I think I would be interested in keeping
Yes.
like if my body parts are deteriorating,
Yes.
swapping them out for
Yeah.
something
That would be cool. Yeah.
eventually, because I don't want to be like all scrunched up and
Let's say your back. When you get older,
your back.
your back goes out. You can replace it with some like carbon fiber.
I would do that.
spine.
Lightweight back.
But then would you just be prolonging your life and without...
Well, maybe not prolonging it. Like maybe your heart and your brain are still the same, but like
Mm.
the other parts that are deteriorating, you'll
Yeah.
be able to bring them back to life, and you'll be able to walk around and do the things you want.
If it could make your life more enjoyable, then that would be
Yeah.
good.
Until the end.
Now, on that note, what would make your life more enjoyable?
I hear Munim.
I know.
What should life make
Monim people.
enjoyable?
When you're saying, we've all kind of immediately all agreed that, we don't want to come back again,
Yeah.
and so to our viewers, it might seem as if we are unhappy campers, but we're not.
No, we're
We're
just
not.
talking about death openly.
Real thing. Yeah.
So what does make us happy for the time that we are in this
Yeah, I think it's important to find some sort of, whether you find it in your work or a hobby, like something to consume your mind in in some way. So programming is it for me, at least for now.
For me, is to wake up in the morning every day and be healthy, number one. And honestly, I'm not lying, just because she's sitting here, to have one good friend I can call every day. I don't have that many friends.
Okay.
Yeah, people have divorced me.
Okay.
Seriously. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, I do agree. Having this is what I've realized. What makes me happy, you can have all kinds of professional accomplishments and other ones, but if you can't sit down and have a good laugh with somebody, and you can't find enough people to have a good laugh with, then it's kind of
unconditional friendship.
yes. But
Which
you
is
never
very
know.
rare.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually did have a question about, or not question, but I had a theory about like arguments and arguments online.
Yes.
And I have a theory, and this is
Yes.
completely made up statistic. This is not a researched on y'all normal statistic,
Okay.
but that 80% of arguments are because of like some sort of miscommunication.
Yes.
And one thought that I had was when one time me and Bill were looking at some post on Facebook, and then someone commented something sarcastically, and we could tell it was sarcastic. But Bill's like, "Watch, people are gonna misinterpret this and think that he's serious."
Yes.
And then of course the follow up guys, "How dare you say this?" or whatever. And the other guy had no idea like what was going on until he came back.
So
do you think
how does
that-
this relate to your what would make you happy?
Well, to friendships, I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Like when you were talking
That
about
you can understand that the other person is just joshing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's good, as Shazia was saying, to have at least a group or one very good friend
That understand
who you generally don't argue with, and who you can argue with, but you're still friends afterwards. You know.
Yes.
Right.
Or if you just drop in and the friend says, "Okay, now I have to go somewhere if you don't mind," and she won't mind,
Right,
it,
yes.
know, or
Exactly.
Right.
And actually, that brings up another interesting thing. I was talking to.
Because nothing we say on this is uninteresting.
Is that what I said? I just
No. You said that brings up another interesting thing.
okay.
And so that's why I said nothing we say
This
is
is
uninteresting.
uninteresting.
Yeah, that's true.
That's why we have so many viewers.
Yeah.
That's true. I forget who I was talking to, but we were saying like sometimes you'll go to an event and like you'll talk to people and they want to become really close friends with you, like
In
really
one meeting?
like really fast. Yes, and they'll be like, okay, and let's like we should definitely keep hanging out and like. I forget the other things they said, but like in my mind, I know a lot. Like when I go to some of these events, like I know, like I already have my close group of friends. Like there's no making new really close ones. So, and it's okay. You can go up to people and talk to them, but you don't have to like pretend that you're gonna like. Yeah, exactly.
That's pretty common. Just give them your old home phone number, like I do.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But it's like, but I wonder
Tell us more, Nabil.
I wonder maybe if some people like if they genuinely don't have a close friend and this is they really
Their
like
chance.
you, what they see anyway,
I'd say
and
so.
they want to
No, you know what? This is called people pleasing.
people play. Oh yeah, that's true, I guess. But is it though? Because I'm talking about the people who. One thing is to kind of make yourself look good in front of people, but there's another thing where they want to like
Are you
be
suggesting
hanging out with you.
Are you
They're
suggesting?
needy people.
Okay.
Yeah, but is there anything wrong in being needy or realizing, darn, I've lived 50 plus years of my life and now I found somebody who is
Cool.
yes.
That's true.
I
mean,
think
That's true.
I have a
Yeah.
feeling it has to do with what you were saying, which was they don't have other people that they can hang out with regularly.
Maybe they want more.
And I think that
Or
a lot
maybe
of
they
people.
really liked you.
Yes.
Know?
Yeah, that's true.
I know sometimes that someone has really liked me,
Yeah.
but I may not have liked that person. You
yeah,
know?
that's true.
Or maybe the person lives like an hour away, and I know I'm too lazy to go because I have my parameter of friends.
Right.
You know?
That's true.
And you make false promises. Oh yeah, we'll meet. And then they're calling, and then you're like letting
Making
it go into
excuses.
voicemail.
Yeah.
Whenever I see an old friend, that always happens. It's like, hey, I haven't seen you in a long time. Yeah, let's definitely like meet up or something. And I'm like, it's not gonna happen. You know it. I know it. I'm just happy to say hello right now.
Whenever I notice Nabil doing it, it's always like now he'll say yeah, and then he'll end with a no, like a quiet no. He's like yeah, no. So it's like you're agreeing with him, but
Yeah.
I'm not.
But I do feel I meet more people, and you meet people and then you think, this is somebody, they've got an interesting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Or when I met my college friends after 35 years and I hadn't met them for 35 years, I know I'm not going to meet them regularly because I'm not there in Pakistan. But when I do meet, I'll meet on a very comfortable level like I was when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
Things haven't changed. I don't have new baggage with me as far as things they did or didn't say or do. But on a switching to a slightly different note, even individually, are you able to sometimes remind yourself to not take things that other people say too seriously? Where you think, I'll have fun with this person now and we'll have a good conversation, and maybe we will connect, but maybe we won't,
Yeah, the question is, are you able to not take it seriously and not make it feel...
Yes, not feel burdened with, oh, darn, I said to this person I was going to meet them, but I'm not really.
So here's the thing, now you guys are at a different age and we are at a different age. So when we were your age, we were, we both
searching.
We were like
We were
working, but we would jump at everyone because we were from a different part of the world and we were kind of secluded from, and we did not have too many choices. So
we were looking for the familiar. Yes.
But we still had luckily our work friends and social friends. But now like I have a very wide circle of friends, which I call, because I have a dog group. Yeah. I have a walking group. I have an exercise group.
Yes.
They're all my friends from different parts of the world, different ages. And I meet them on my terms. That's the main thing in our age, and so like we have like this, not a set, it's like random. So we, but there was a time when, you had to schedule a meeting,
Yes.
We still have to suffer that at times.
Sometimes you
because
do.
everybody, it's difficult, but with you people, it's like a lot easier, because you can be night owls, you can be going around.
Even I have stopped.
Yeah.
I'd like to hang out in the daytime.
I think we do try to schedule it as well, though, because we also think of the like one, working hours, and then two, like our friend Michael is in the East Coast, so it's like we have to plan to make sure that it's hard.
We play video games together online, and so, but whenever we play with him, there's a 3-hour difference. So you have to like keep that into account. But actually what I was interested in is, when you first came to the United States, what was it like to meet, go to a party or an event where there were other Desis for the first time, the first event ever? What was the feeling? Was it like, oh, this will be cool, like I'm in a new country, but also get to meet some people from...
It was very familiar to me. I personally enjoyed it. I think it was Qasim's birthday party.
No, it was Farah's.
Farah's sons, yes.
That's where I met you. But that was not the first for me.
Yes, that was the first for me, because you came before I did.
Yes.
I did find the familiarity of people who spoke a language and had shared experiences similar to mine very comforting, and it did help me settle in, because my first 6 months I was homesick and looked for familiarity, and phone calls were not as convenient, and I wasn't working. I did start to work, but it was very difficult. I didn't make friends as much at work because I was still finding myself and understanding, I didn't, there was too big of a culture gap for me to really be friends with someone from a different culture to understand the similarities. So for me, it was very, very comforting. I don't know.
So in my case, when I came, and I was in Boston, and the people that I met right away were much, much older than me. And my husband's friends, he was still doing his MBA. And he had just finished, so a lot of his friends were bachelors, and they were not married. So I used to hang around with a lot of bachelors.
That's funny.
And or people who were much older, and they were, pardon my saying, but they were very backward.
Okay.
So it was like I was this young girl with an older group of people, and then we came to California, and I was still hanging around with those bachelors.
Okay.
So it was a big thing, and then I started working, and I was hanging around, and then the other shock for me was because I was still not gelling in, because I was from a different college, and all these bachelors were getting married with either much younger women, girls, or much older. So I still didn't fit in until I ran into her.
And that was
and the good thing was that birthday party, and then it turns out that your dad was with my older brother in school. So that was the familiarity, that kind of, and then my husband was in the same school. So there was that connection, and we always lived close to each other, except that 1 year that we weren't there.
Yeah, we were in Mountain View, and I think the other was, with Alia and with Hassan's mom. because we were neighbors in Pakistan,
Yes.
and there was a similarity of a background that we came from, that is how you guys spent a lot of time with Hassan and Qasim as well, because your age group was the same, our backgrounds were similar, and so
Right.
you ended up spending a lot of time.
Yeah, what are the
together.
chances of?
I know.
What are the chances of you meeting people all halfway across the world, and you happen to also be neighbors?
Well, I
back?
feel it's a very unique situation where, partly because of the young men that came in the 70s and 80s, your father, her husband, and others, they came, and then Silicon Valley was a place where they all settled. And I think there was a uniqueness of this up and coming field that they were all getting into, and technology and Silicon Valley and all of that. And that made this space, unique to that group of young men who are coming. I do feel that even though many of them came from a fairly, well-off background, but the fact that they made this space their home and made it what it is now, they all contributed to it a lot more than sometimes that they might even give themselves credit for.
Yeah.
Because, when Munim came in the 70s and, you guys came around that time as well, that is what kind of gelled many of us here, which is probably different. I'm sure there are parallels in other places of America where there was some industry which made a certain group of people come together. But, for all of the people, whether it's Ajit's father or whether it's, all of these people that we know, the common bind is
The high
technology.
tech,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
And so I've got a little bit involved in the high tech because I was constantly posted in the high tech.
Right.
My last posting was around Cisco, and it was under construction at that time.
Oh.
Yes. So that's when I quit, and there was just, and I hadn't been there in 20 years, and I recently went around there, and that place there was just 2 Cisco buildings, and now it's all over the place. It's on First North and Zanker. And so how fast it was. And the interesting thing is that when I used to be in these different companies, the last name was Jang, or they would ask me, and inevitably one of the clients would know my husband. And they would ask me in Urdu, is he your husband? And I would say yes.
Yeah.
And the connection going from here and there would go similarity,
yes,
and
Wow.
so, but it's been a good
30
good,
plus
yes.
how many of years we've been here. But we do not want to be reborn.
Yes. But here's the theory, so in the past life as the future life you guys were thinking, so I think I must have done something good in my previous life, that I was born in California.
Okay.
And not in I should say Zimbabwe.
Well, we do like to say that we grew up in California, because when we came,
Yes.
we were naive young women,
Yeah.
younger than both of you.
So I grew up in Mountain View, basically, I say.
Okay.
Close to you guys.
Yeah.
Well, even Munim was saying that he's now been in the U.S. longer than he's been in Pakistan. So he's more American, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, he looks American too.
It is a question that I ponder. I recently read an essay by a Lebanese writer, I think, and he wrote about the concept. The title of the essay is Guests. And he talked about Edward Said and about Joseph Conrad. And Joseph Conrad was a Polish immigrant, and he wrote The Heart of Darkness. And then Edward Said was a Palestinian. And the writer himself also lives in England and in the US, teaches in the US. And I wonder, for those of us who migrate from one country to another, particularly from Eastern countries or Middle Eastern countries to the West, when we see ourselves as a certain identity, how others see us. And maybe that's a question, I think, for the two of you who are born here with parents who are so, multicultural backgrounds. What are your thoughts of your identity? And we had this question for Hassan as well. Because he lived as an adult, he lived in Pakistan and even going to high school. Do you ever ponder that, or do you not even consider it?
Of what other people think?
Of your identity, of what others think, or what you think.
Okay. I think from what I've heard from other people is that they like the idea of having like some sort of background and culture, like food and dance and music.
Although everyone has a culture.
Well, I guess maybe if
they want more than one.
Right. I guess if we're comparing like over here, are you considering white? Like
yes, that's still a culture.
Yeah, but their ancestors are so far behind. Like if they're from Ireland or from Germany, that they've kind of disconnected at some point, and we will probably at some point.
It's blended so much,
right? So for them, I've heard that they envy that aspect. That
I think having two worlds really helps.
But for me, I guess I don't see that much of a connection to it.
Yeah, I don't put any importance on identity.
How do you really feel about it?
I mean, it's just kind of like we're all like humans and we came from somewhere, and if you like music and food from a certain place, then that's cool.
Like
but
yeah,
like
like
that is my identity.
Cajun identity.
Yeah. But I don't know. It's not something I think about. And when I talk to someone, I take them at face value. I'm not gonna draw any additional conclusions on what what they will be like based on where they come from.
But for yourself,
do you?
Yeah.
Are you?
I mean, outside looking in, I'm an American. Like, if you talk to me, it's like, yeah, this guy's from America. He's an American. A Pakistani wouldn't say I'm Pakistani, I don't think.
Yes, they would.
Would they?
Yeah, they would.
What do you mean a Pakistani wouldn't say they're Pakistani?
No, Pakistan would say I'm Pakistani.
I think
I
think they would just because of the name.
I'm pretty sure your dadi would say you're Pakistani.
Well, I understand that. But like, if you talk to me, I don't know anything about,
so he has similar ideas like me. So, I love to travel. So interestingly, I start feeling wherever I go that I belong to that country.
Okay.
Because for some reason, it's not that I'm tooting my horn or I'm some, exotic creature.
Right.
But
Why not?
I was in Turkey and I was traveling to Cappadocia. You guys have been to Cappadocia, right? So I went to this pottery place, and there was this man who looked just like Einstein, and he was called Einstein.
Okay.
So I wanted a picture with him. So he started talking to me in Turkish, and I said, I'm not Turkish. He said, what? And I was like really pleased with myself. Turkish,
yeah. Well, if you just stayed there for 20 more years or whatever, you would be Turkish.
Fine, I look Turkish. And so, and then somebody asked me at Istanbul airport, Arabic, she started talking to me, and I said, I'm not Turkish. I'm not. And she said, I was speaking, are you not Syrian?
Yeah.
So, I felt very Turkish when I was in Turkey, and then once we were in Spain, and this woman started talking to me in Spanish. So I was,
you feel
thinking,
Spanish.
I'm Andalusian, here I have some Moroccan blood. So now I've started to kind of feel that, if I'm in Redwood City, I'm from Redwood City.
Yeah.
Similarly, going completely off track, when I have to tell people that I'm out of town, I'm not lying, because when I'm coming home from Woodside to Redwood City,
it's a different town.
I'm going out of town.
That's true.
So I justify that, So
okay.
I'm lost in this universe because God created this universe. So I belong to every place.
Yeah. And also with technology and like fast transportation, you can be anywhere so fast that like, yeah, you could be...
or educate yourself on it, like in the language.
Yeah, it's not so divided where like, I'm from this country and, well, it would take us a year to get to the next door country. So I'm very much... my identity is this, whereas these days, you can be an Icelandic person if you really wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, if I want to be a punk, I'll just color my hair, and in 3-4 weeks, I'll be a Barcelonian.
Why not?
Why not? The only thing is I can't be Irish because,
well, never say never.
Never say never.
You could have been Irish, was it yesterday or today?
St. Patrick's. That's today.
Yeah, today.
Today, everyone
If
is
you want,
Irish.
you can get
today.
a pie for $1 today at Trader Joe's.
If you're
What kind of?
what kind of pie?
Pumpkin pie.
Oh, I got
Okay.
it for
She got one.
$1.99 yesterday.
You got ripped off.
Ripped off.
Yeah.
Well, we have less than a minute left, so
What would you like to plug?
any websites? Any?
You know, so I am a big fan of the Kailash Valley of Pakistan, you know, up north, because that's very multicultural, because that's what my brain is, multicultural.
Okay.
There are people from up north, you know, so that's what the name of my studio is. It's called Kailash Art Studios.
And let me see this. I'll try and put it in
Yes.
front of the camera.
It's I don't have a
Or you can
website,
put it in the description as well.
Yeah.
and it's on I have a
Ooh,
Facebook
yeah,
page.
you can see it.
And you can certainly go browse it, you know, and whenever I have exhibitions, I post it, and I make curated stuff, you know, for people's weddings, and you know, different stuff. And I'm very moody also. Sometimes I'm in a very good mood, so I make very good stuff. If I'm in a very bad mood,
Okay.
then I make nothing.
Okay. Fair enough. But
And I'm very happy to be invited today.
yeah, no, it was great having you. And you will actually probably be our last guest. We're gonna have a break of like doing the podcast just by ourselves for a little bit, because having a guest every week is, I don't know, mentally straining a little bit.
Not mentally straining. I'm the organizer of the guests.
Oh, sorry,
so-
I should rephrase. Anika's fine. Me and Daniel are.
Yeah.
We want a couple episodes alone. So, but we thank you for coming, and thank you viewers for watching. And until next time, take care.